Good afternoon and welcome back. My name's Matthew McLaughlin.
And I'm Daniel Sandner.
And we have some notes for
The Majestic.
The Jim Carrey movie right after his string of comedies in the 90s. I think you told me this was his first venture into something serious.
Kinda. Yeah, maybe I did. This one was after Truman Show. This one was right after Man on the Moon. I don't know if he had done Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. There's like 4 that he did. Four.
What year was
this
this?
one? 2001.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it seems very 90s-y, but yeah, 2001.
Yeah, I was curious if this came after or before Truman Show, because I was thinking the entire time that Jim Carrey in this felt very right after, like, what's it even called? Ace, what was that?
Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura. In the first third, he felt like you're waiting for a punchline. It felt like you were waiting for a Jim Carreyism. And then, man, last 2/3, whenever things got really serious, man, he kicked it into gear. What a cool freaking movie. I swear, that was so good. I really enjoyed the Truman Show, too. So to see this and hear that it's coming on or after it is surprising, because I think that he did a better job of the day-to-day stuff in the Truman Show than he did in this one. But the dramatic stuff, man, he has chops.
He does.
He does really, really good.
He does. Yeah, I was looking up a little bit of the timelines because I knew roughly kind of what we were looking at. So to preface, this was a suggestion from a viewer, so thank you. It is an older one that's a little more niche that I know not many have heard of. But like you said, it's one of the few little like gold nugget serious Jim Carrey roles. And so in the order of things he had done, I think Truman Show was like 96 or 98 or something like that. He did one called Man on the Moon, which is an Andy Kaufman one, which he played a comedian, but like that was one of his like harder forays into emulating a real person, kind of a biopic one. And then he did this right around 2000. And so, yeah, I'm curious if he got cast for this just because of Truman Show being so close, and kind of the other things going on in his career that he fit that. We were talking about this earlier too, kind of the Jimmy Stewart style, the look, the demeanor, to fit this, movie that basically Jimmy Stewart would have been in. It was this would have been his bread and butter in terms of the types of movies he was in. So, and on the same note there, so the director, Frank Darabont did The Green Mile. He did Shawshank Redemption. He's done like all the Stephen King adaptations. And
that definitely explains Brooks.
Doesn't
Every
it?
time I see
Doesn't
him on
it?
screen,
Yep.
tears every time.
You're totally right. This one came right after Green Mile, like right after. I think this was the next picture for him. And the style I just watched The Green Mile like a couple weeks ago. The style was like totally the same. Even some of the actors carried over to this one. And it was just kind of cool to see him take on yet another period piece that's like this heavily cinematic period piece. Using actors that are, Tom Hanks started as a comedian, and yet he killed it in The Green Mile. You have now Jim Carrey doing this, and it's cool to see comedians do that. Even Robin Williams did it a lot in his career too, and like you said, he pulled it off well in this movie.
I wonder if there's definitely a trend there that you just pointed out, and I think it's got to be because, comedians, they obviously know how to make people laugh, and I think that you can't do that without understanding why people cry. And I think that might be a big reason why we see all these comedians have such powerful emotional roles later in their careers.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the ones for Jim Carrey where he wasn't funny ever, like really ever in this movie. Like you think about Truman Show and he had some Jim Carrey-isms in that one for sure. Or even some of his other serious roles, he had some Jim Carrey moments where they were weird. He was wacky or highly expressive. But in this one, he's very, not even dour, but very contemplative, very, deadpan through a lot of the movie. He's actually, dare I say, one of the mellower aspects of this movie, which seems weird for someone like Jim Carrey, who usually steals the screen. So, yeah, it is a fascinating arc to see comedians take that stage, because Robin Williams did it so well. And then he found a great way to bring in comedy in a dramatic way. So if you think of even movies like Mrs. Doubtfire, where they are a comedy, it's comedy for dramatic sake, for dramatic impact. You have movies like Patch Adams or things like that, same kind of deal where he's himself, but in this endearing and, thought-provoking kind of way where it isn't just slapstick. And it's so cool. to see Jim Carrey have his moment, especially in this movie during the third or fourth time his serious dramatic role approached him, and he pulled it off well. So
Yeah. It gets me thinking, there's that slew of comedians. You mentioned all of them, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey. Right now, there's been a kind of a renaissance of stand-up, I feel like, especially in the Austin area. I mean, anybody who scrolls through Instagram knows just all the stand-up comedians that are popping off for the last, 3 years.
Yeah.
It really makes me wonder what's going to be their thing in their later stages of their careers. Because all of them are still kind of in that riding the wave of comedy. And as far as I know, nobody's really taken the leap to come up with something crazy. Like this generation from the 80s and 90s, they ended up going into serious acting roles. And it was almost expected that that would be a twist. Then comedy kind of died for a while, at least in the way that we knew it. And here we are today where we have a renaissance of stand-up comedians. I kind of don't see them going the same route.
No, I don't either.
I don't think so. I think that Shane Gillis isn't going to have any serious acting roles anytime soon.
Well, and you've seen Dave Chappelle jump into acting, but he does comedies still. And you have people like Eddie Murphy, hi buddy, who jumped in, but they always stuck to what they knew, which was comedy. So yeah, it's an interesting trend. I think the trend we see more today is one that we saw even a little bit in the 70s and 80s, where you see pop stars jumping into movies, where you see we've seen Lady Gaga a couple times, and we've seen a lot of people who star in movies who are pop stars initially. And, you saw that a little bit then too, and usually are pretty corny and, little breakout roles for these artists. But nowadays, I dare say the vast majority of musicians that go in and do that kind of thing are pretty successful. So maybe it's the age of that and not so much comedians anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I wonder if it was just a fluke, or not really a fluke, but just a of its time kind of thing.
Might be.
But regardless of what it was or how things are going to go with the comedians of our time, his performance was surprising. I mentioned earlier that the first third of the movie, I wasn't having
Not
it.
a fan.
No.
Yeah. I was surprised to hear you say you kind of turned around, because I'm like, cool, all right.
Yeah. It was it's just very cheesy in the beginning. And I think that was kind of on purpose, but at the same time, it was just a little too cheesy.
His performance or the movie in general?
The performance.
Okay.
Yeah. I could get what the movie was going for, but his performance, I think, was the issue. But yeah, then the last 2/3 where things start to get serious, you start to see the problems, you can feel the tension building. After that, yeah, he performed so dang well. I'm not sure if I would put it on exactly the same level as, why am I forgetting the names? But Matt Damon and Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah, for Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. I don't think this is to that level, but damn if it isn't close. I mean, seriously, Good Will Hunting, that makes me cry every single time.
True.
And I am there from the beginning through the end.
Totally.
It just pulls me in.
It's a
all the way
perfect
through.
dramatic role for Robin Williams. And
Son of a gun.
so well written and everything. Yeah, that's fair.
And this movie, by contrast, I think it's very easy to look at them and compare them. It just doesn't do that in the first half. First third. Those second 2/3, though, yeah, they were great.
It's a long movie. I think it's probably at least a half hour too long, where the whole movie you're kind of spending your time waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it drops in the last 20 minutes, and then that's it. That's the push. But everything else is just building the theater and learning who you are and falling in love, and it takes a moment. Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's one of my biggest qualms with this movie. It's just too long. But I suppose when you pair it to the movies that the director had just made, I think Green Mile's 3 hours and 15 minutes, and Shawshank's 2:45. He just likes long movies, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. And there's a lot in this story. You go from a thriving Hollywood writer to getting blacklisted and falling off the face of the earth, being discovered, growing as a new person, remodeling a theater, having a love story, being discovered, going through trial, amending ties, and coming. That's a lot of ground to cover, and they cover it well, but it's long.
Yeah, it's a lot to cover. But the other thing that I'd have a note on, and it's really just the fact that you can't get away with it in modern movies, was the premise itself. In modern movies, there is no way that you could have just a regular amnesia story. Amnesia stories are boring these days. They just straight up are. We've seen them before. You know that it's kind of a cop-out in certain aspects. And I had to, as a modern viewer, I had to get over that. I actually had to get over that and just accept the premise that, okay, yeah, he bumped his head a little bit.
Yeah.
And instead of, not drowning in the river, he was able to survive getting washed up on the ocean somehow. And just was fine besides losing some memory. Like,
Yeah.
you just kind of have to get
Yeah.
rid of you have to really suspend your disbelief.
Yep.
But I think that kind of was fine in this movie. The only reason was because they started to go off of the old golden Hollywood stuff, where you really had to suspend your disbelief.
It's an old school movie.
An old school
It's
movie.
made like an old school movie, and those are the types of movies where you go to the movie to suspend your disbelief, to escape. And so, yeah, Amnesia, great, awesome. Meets a girl randomly. All of the like ethical dilemmas within this movie, you're like,
Well, we'll just ignore that.
we're
for
just
now.
gonna ignore that. Yeah,
Hey, he got her in the end, which makes it right?
sure. I
Don't think about it.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. You're just like, just don't worry about it.
But the funny thing is that I kind of want to talk about it with that kind of satirical modern mentality, but at the same time, I really don't, because we miss movies like this. There's a reason why they impact us, why they bring out emotions in us, and it's because they just are what they are. They commit to what they're doing, and they just make it happen. Whereas modern movies, there would be all those ethical dilemmas, and you'd have to work around it, and then you'd have to worry about what the press is going to say, and whether the actress is okay with it, and all these other groups that have to chime in on social media and say that your movie's crap because of all that. And this is a time where you could just not really think about it that much because it's a movie.
Right. Well, and therein lies a big difference between modern movies and movies then. I mean, you can think about the movies they were watching in the movie. They're fantastical, they're whimsical, they're not based in any sort of reality. You're there in the Sahara, or you're there, whatever. You're not nitpicking. But now it seems like we've gone to the point where movies of today have to emulate real life, or else they're heavily scrutinized. Like, there's only emotion based in the reality of the situation, because that's what we've learned to relate with in movies. And so unless it's something that could happen realistically, or something adjacent, it, falls short in some way. And in this one, I mean, you take the premise on its face, and that's what you do in old movies. I mean, they went to the moon. Awesome. You don't really ask questions why. You're just there to follow their journey to the moon. Or, they're in the Sahara. Great. You don't really ask questions as to why they're using the wrong swords, or whatever the case may be. It's the escapism. And I think that's what makes this movie, and movies of that age, so endearing, is that was the point of movies. The point of movies was to escape and to be transformed to a different world, a different time, a different premise that wasn't reality. And so I think that this movie emulates that perfectly for that reason.
Well, even the namesake. The namesake of the movie is the theater, and the guy who passed away and everything. He talks about how people go in and be entertained with groups of people, and how they have all these worries outside of the theater. But as soon as people walk through those doors and they go into the theater, everything's okay.
Exactly.
They're there to be transported. They're there to be entertained. They're there to spend time and forget about the outside world. And it's kind of meta to think about it, but that's not only how the movies were made, even when this one was, but that came across how this actually was produced and what ended up on our screens.
Right.
It really is that escapism, and it's definitely missing nowadays.
It is. I mean, the whole spiel that the father makes on behalf of why the theater is so important to the community, especially a community marred with trauma from losing people in the real world. This is the real world. This is not. And why something like a theater can be so important, why movies can be so important. And the fact that, they went and made a movie in 2001 that was made like a movie in the 40s or 50s, flaws and all, makes it this kind of an endearing passion project where it's this grandiose homage to classic Hollywood and to classic movies and to escapism and to what a movie can mean at its face. So, yeah, I don't know about you. I have only a couple nitpicks. So I don't know if we want to start with goods or bads.
Nah, go for it. Jump in.
Okay. The main nitpick that I had, and I remembered having this last time I watched this too many years ago, the piano thing. I understand it's a plot device. The fact that he just gets up and plays the piano. But every time I see it, it feels weird because there's so many boxes that get checked when he he has amnesia, and then he does a thing that's a lot like Luke. And then they're like, oh my gosh, he's Luke because he did the thing. And there's just enough of those ticked that by the time you get to the piano one, it just feels weird that he's suddenly ticking this box that, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense, because at least in his Appleton time when he was, pre-amnesia, he never showed that he could play the piano, let alone like a jazz pianist. And then he gets up on stage and just starts hammering the keys. And then later you find out that, yeah, you weren't Luke because you played jazz and not classical or whatever. But I always found it funny that he just suddenly was like this, wizard on the keys randomly. And he found out during this event, you're like, there's just too many things that stack up to make him way too much like this guy that it just starts to feel a little off. So that's the one that kind of gets me a little bit each time I watch it. It's just the odd piano situation and how that kind of comes back and forth through the movie. So I don't know, that was one thing.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the guy at the end, he's able to know. Well, it was the fact that he was about to be found out.
Yeah.
I think that's why it didn't feel weird to me, was that we had all these that were like very similar, very similar, very similar. Now we have one where his piano teacher is yelling at him, who taught you to do this? He's about to be found out.
Right. The guy
and
covers
then
for him.
The guy saves him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand it's an important plot device. It just feels a little too like, oh, he's also this kind of a, like, even if he were just a little more clunky on the keys, I guess. It's just the fact that he starts ripping up the keys randomly, I just find kind of interesting, because you don't know that anything about that even before it. And it just feels like a little weird, but little gripe. So, yeah.
You said you had others, or is that?
What was the other one I was thinking of? Most of them are covered by the fact that this movie is very much just old school. And so it plays a lot like a play. Like it's a little outlandish in a lot of things, but it's for the sake of the whimsy, and it's for the sake of the nostalgia that you get from it too, and the style of the movie. So honestly, most things are forgiven. There was one other thing. I'll think of it eventually, because I honestly don't remember. But the piano one was the one that stuck out to me. So yeah, anything from you?
Well, the thing is, not really. All my gripes are really in that first third. After
just pacing wise?
Yeah, it was just
pacing and acting.
Yeah, mainly the acting. But after that, suspend your disbelief and then kind of just roll with it as a movie.
The town is too easy to forgive at the end. He pisses the lady off, his girlfriend off, and then he goes on TV, he stands up for himself and everything, and then just suddenly comes back and kisses her. And that's, again, within the style, that's fine. I find that funny. I'm like, wow, these guys are way too easy to just take him at face value every time.
Well, I think it's different than that. I think there was more depth, because if they were just taking him at face value, then that negates the entire scene of the entire town listening to the trial.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When they're listening to the trial, that's showing that, okay, it's different. Mm-hmm. They thought he was Luke, and they're all disappointed and everything, but now they just want Pete to be okay.
Right.
They just want Pete to be okay. They know that guy, and they know that they know him at least, so they care. So I think it's different from just forgiving, because at the end of the day, if we want to get into the ethics of it, there's some stuff that isn't okay, but at the same time, the dude's being told, hey, you're this guy, and he has no idea that he isn't. So you kind of just have to forgive him.
And we, the audience, are the only ones who really can skirt that line ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the town, I don't think is too easy to forgive. I think that they care about what that guy did. I mean, they look around their town and they see the joy that's there, even if it wasn't even a lie. It was literally just a misunderstanding.
Right.
And they realize that. And sure, there's pain and hurt and everything that comes with it. But that scene where it shows them all tuning in their TVs, tuning on their radios, that was pretty impactful. I'm not going to lie.
The power of the court scene is great. It's great writing. It's great impact. Yeah. It's a good last 20 minutes of the movie. Just good. So
yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, other good things. I can't think about what the other thing was. I love how heartfelt and warming this movie is, both in how it's shot, how it's written, but just also I kind of mentioned, the nostalgia of it too, the harken back to movies of old and how they were made. The set design is very colorful. And so everything is just, it's warming, it's welcoming, and you feel that through, the majority of the movie up until the court scene where it turns very blue and very, very vastly different before it returns to form. And so, yeah, just a fun, colorful color palette, good music, great cinematography. The writing's good throughout too. And it's just an interesting premise. So I don't know. I always forget how comforting this movie is. I mean, it's long, but it's just kind of a feel good movie. I don't know.
It's funny because you mentioned the length a bunch of times and it didn't feel too long to me. As weird as that is, it didn't feel long to me at all.
For me, it gets a little long in the middle each time, but it's not like a bad length. It's just,
where does it lose you?
It loses me. What was that? It loses me a little bit past. It was the party scene. I'm trying to think of what the scene was right after that.
Wasn't it them building up the theater?
Was that right after the party scene?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that there's just a lot of ground to cover, and I'm just conscious of that. I mean, similar to if you see like Dune, like it's not bad that it's long. It's just a lot of stuff you covered. And when you look back at it retrospectively, you're like, that was a lot. I mean, it was good. It was a lot.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's because you've seen it before.
Probably.
Yeah, like
so
I'm seeing it with fresh eyes, never seen this movie before. Well, actually, ironically, I'm not sure if I've seen this movie before. I was telling you that while we were watching it, that the further we went in, the more I think I've seen it before, but I couldn't remember if I had, which I find is hilarious.
And the verdict's still out?
The verdict's still out. I'm like 90% sure that I have, but it must have been a long time ago. The scene that sticks out to me that makes me think that I've seen it is where the dad dies in the theater. That was super familiar. So maybe I saw like half of it and had to go do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to say that I saw it with fresh eyes because I can't tell for sure.
Sure, that's fine.
And yeah, I was not bored and I was engaged, and there is a decent amount of ground to cover, but they pace it very well. Yeah, they did a really good job.
They did. Yeah, there's not scenes that you think that are throwaway scenes either, which is kind of refreshing when you look at it and you're like, oh, that's just padding the runtime or whatever. Like even the thing like the party had its place, or certain elements, everything belonged. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard when it comes to length too, because there are some days where I could just sit down and like crank out a 3.5 hour movie, something super long, and some days where you just notice it more. So could just be the day, but doesn't mean it's bad. Still a great movie. So yeah. Other good things, other bad things, other notes.
It's funny because this was based in what, the 50s? Yeah. So in the 50s, I actually didn't realize that the whole witch hunt communist stuff was starting then. I thought it was a little bit later. But it's interesting that you had to have taken a history class in your life to understand why the communism theme was there. Because if you haven't done that, it's like where the hell did this communism thread come from? And it's just because at the time that's what was happening. People were being effectively witch hunted and found out for the dumbest ties. And that's what this movie's statement against that whole witch hunt era was. But yeah, if you haven't had a history class that taught you about that, you're gonna be really confused.
Indeed. I think you're close though. I think this movie was like 57 or something. So it was, let me verify that. Oh, never mind. 51
is when it's based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Based in 51. It's one of those topics that this one, and I think the movie, I think it's called Mank. It has Gary Oldman, and he's a writer at the same time. I think it has some Blacklist stuff in it, too. It's a topic that's just really interesting to me, this entire Hollywood witch hunt. I mean, maybe it stems from the fact that, one of my filmic idols with Walt Disney was also blacklisted at one point. And it's just interesting how it came about and what it was and who got screwed because of it. And it was literally a he said, she said. And then it just kind of up and disappeared, and that was it. And how you could base a narrative around that, something interesting, was really cool. Because I think this was an original screenplay, too. I don't think this was based from anything. So another fun, refreshing take on something. And yeah.
One big positive for me is the old school themes and old school ideas. And what I mean by that is the taking something from the beginning and have it come full circle in the end. Specifically when he goes from being a writer to just being a ticket guy.
Yeah.
He's still in the movie industry.
Yeah.
But he went all the way from the top to, you could argue, the bottom. That sounds wrong, but
Yeah.
I mean, he chose that one.
Yeah.
He chose that life over being a glorious writer who makes his own movies and has them up there. And the words are being said that he wrote, and he chose to just be in the ticket booth. And I like themes like that. I like the idea that somebody has an arc. I even like the simple ideas that are placed. Like, he talks about how his life is ending, and he says a line that feels so classic Hollywood to me, talking about how, well, maybe I'll just hop in the car and drive until the gas runs out or the sun comes up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's poetic. It's poetic stuff. And it's not exactly, like the most poetic, but I just like that for
It's
whatever
fitting for the
reason.
era, yeah.
It fits. It fits, and it makes you happy, and it really puts you into the position that they're thinking. And I miss that stuff.
Yeah.
I miss that stuff in movies.
Yeah. Or even just like underlying themes of patriotism or underlying themes of just true love or stories like that. This movie reminds me a lot of, I got a chance when I was in a film class in college to watch a lot of Frank Capra movies. And he's the director of It's a Wonderful Life. He did What Happened One Night or something like that. A lot of his movies are this very similar kind of premise. I mean, not the Blacklist and stuff, but in terms of the true love stuff, heck, even the amnesia stuff, it's kind of a common trope. And I think that's why I enjoy this movie so much too, and why it's so nostalgic to me, is that it really is a love letter to maybe him as a director. I don't know if that was intended or not. But at the very least, it matches his movies very stylistically. And we mentioned Jimmy Stewart and everything too, same kind of thing. And I love that because his movies delved into similar topics. I mean, they were the topics of the time. I mean, you think about the whole kind of renaissance of the nuclear family and post-war families growing and the patriotism that coursed through and things like that, those types of sentiments. And it's completely reflected in here. Everything from the script to what you see on screen, the way that the community dynamics are. And then you get to juxtapose that to what was going on in Hollywood and just the kind of callous nature of the witch hunt in that. And so I think it's a great villain to put to something so pure when you have something so unfair as the Hollywood blacklist put against something so pure like just American founding ideals, so to speak, and the things that you'd see in those classic movies just married so well. And especially, like you said, the coming full circle, the payoff at the end is truly there too. So you get the classic, almost storybook ending, the fairy tale ending, where he gets the girl and where, all of the ends are pretty much tied up in the best way they could be. And it's refreshing in a world where that's not really the case in movies a lot of the time.
It's really nice to watch a movie where the director wasn't trying to be edgy.
Yeah, or make a statement even.
Well, I would disagree with that one because he was definitely making a statement against the witch hunt for communism and all that stuff. That's what his statement was pro-America, to get back to the Constitution. The small towns who lost everything back in the day needed to be treated better. He was making a statement, but it wasn't just like our modern definition of edgy.
Right.
And I don't even have the definition, but it's just you can feel it. Like we've called it different things. Everything needs to be based in a gritty reality where everything's edgy and there's horrific things that happen. And yeah, there's rose-tinted glasses on this movie, and I think it's for the better. And I've been noticing that for a long time, that so many movies, I feel like, have the film student's view of what a dark reality is, and they think they need to put that on everything. And I keep looking at the movies that stand the test of time, that people come back to for generations, and it's not those movies. Even like the Batman trilogy from Christopher Nolan, that is a gritty, realism-based series, but there's rose-tinted glasses on it. All of them are caricatures. All of them have something that is out of this world that goes along with the themes, but stays with that kind of gritty aspect. Whereas so many movies just try to be as dirty, as grimy, as almost disgusting to watch as possible, and they're just not that good because of it.
Yeah. No,
Anyway.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I was thinking about that with particularly the cinematography in this movie. And if you even look at the director's track record, so this was the same cinematographer as The Green Mile. The Green Mile, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is about inmates on death row. Not happy subject matter. It is a beautiful movie. It is gorgeously shot. It's highly cinematic. There's very little handheld. You have those nice, like, light blooming, as if you're putting on a, I forget what the filter's name is. The thing that
Pro mist.
Thank you. It's kind of, like a Pro Mist filter. And it's pretty to watch, even though the subject matter is horrific. This movie, granted, the subject matter isn't horrific, but it still retains the same cinematic premise. There were maybe, 2 handheld shots in, like, this whole movie. I mean, they were on stabilizers, but the whole thing was shot on sticks. It was shot on sliders. It was shot on cranes. It was very locked off. It was very intentional. And so those rose-colored glasses really brought out the positive themes, I think, because of it, because it made it pretty. It made it an experience, as if you were going to a theater to watch this because you want the experience. You're not, you could go outside and look at the dirt on the ground, but if you go to the theater and you see something great and different and true, it was like what he said in his spiel, like anyone can sit at home and stare at the tiny box in their living room and not dress up for the occasion. But for something like this, you go and you witness a movie, something grander than yourself. Whereas, modern day movies, like, in a way, they are also catered to watching on smaller screens because that's just kind of our world. But yeah, they're like, let's throw the grunge on here to hammer in the fact that he's distraught or downtrodden and the whole thing's handheld and you can't see what you're looking at, and the grade is really dark and contrasted and gross. Like you said, gross is a great word to put to it. Where this movie is artistic and it's poetic and it's just pretty and an enjoyable feast for the eyes, that actually makes it an experience to witness, as opposed to, just some toss out kind of effect.
There's this magic time, like, I don't even know exactly when it starts, maybe 93 to like 2008.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
There's this, right when the millennia shifts, there's this crazy time period of amazing cinematic masterpieces that are shot in what, to me, granted, it's from my childhood, but that feel like true cinema, that feel like classic Hollywood, that feel different. It's something where you wouldn't necessarily have it as it wouldn't be an option to watch on an airplane.
True. They were for the theater going experience.
For the theater.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because we were just on a plane and I watched The Long Game, which is a new movie out on Amazon Prime. It's a golfing movie about how there was racism against Mexicans back in the day on golf courses in Texas. And the premise is really good. Actually, the acting is surprisingly good. The main young actor actually reminds me of Tristan.
Oh, really?
Which, if you saw it, I think you would agree.
Okay. And you said it was Dennis Quaid, too, right?
I think so. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
But anyway, the main problem that I had with that movie was the fact that the shots were not that intentional. You could tell that the DP or the director, whichever one, really liked montages, and they loved gimbals. And every shot was like that, and you'd have these swooping things, but they would have the swoopiness or this wide angle that's really close to the character for everything. And it just made all the shots feel completely unintentional. It's like there was no meaning behind them. Whereas you watch something like this, and to be honest, I wasn't even paying that much attention to the cinematography because it just blended.
Beauty in the stillness.
It just blended. It just was. I was watching a movie. That's what the cinematography in this did, and that's a success.
Yeah, didn't draw you out.
Yep.
Brought you right in.
Because if it draws you out and you're happy for it, that is above and beyond, and that is possibly game-changing cinematography. If it's like this is just solid. It is. Yeah. This guy has his bones down to a T. He knows what he's doing. Bam, done. And then you have things like The Long Game, where it
draws you out for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. It's like,
it draws you out, and you're like, ooh.
Stop running. Hey, dude, land on your foot and hold it steady a little bit longer. Yeah. Don't sink. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, it feels like classic Hollywood. That's the big thing. And I think that's missing nowadays. There's a few movies. I think Dune started to hit that a little bit because sci-fi, for whatever reason, sci-fi seems to be kind of timeless.
Yeah.
As weird as that is.
Well, it's otherworldly. There's no basis in reality a lot of the time, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. That's I think one thing that astonished me. You had mentioned that time period of kind of golden Hollywood. I mean, you think Jurassic Park. You think of. I mean, heck, I think that's why I like Frank Darabont so much as a director. Is a lot of my favorite movies are his and he did them mostly in the late 90s and early 2000s. But when I looked this one up again to remember what year it was made in, I was surprised to see it was 2001. I thought it was like 92. It has that timeless feel to it. And you could watch it again, and the only thing that's going to draw you out of it is that you know that the actors are older now, or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, it's crazy. And it's crazy. Speaking of actors, I admire how many classic, timeless actors are in this movie, too. One of my favorites, David Ogden Stiers, is the Doctor, and he's a voice actor for Disney through and through. He's in MASH. He's in a whole lot of things. I love him as an actor. He's just fun. He doesn't get to glow that much in this movie. He's a kind of a background part, but there's a lot of fun actors in this that are pulled out. Like, it feels like a complete cast of actual characters, not caricatures, which is fun. So, yeah, it's just a great movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to say besides that. Darn
Okay.
good.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a short review then. Do we want to jump into categories then?
Yeah, so every week we give a score out of 5. You can find that on Letterboxd. We are OTW Video on Letterboxd. And we're going to go get our scores, so we'll cut and we'll be back like that. So we just got our reviews done. We have our scores. And let's start off with uniqueness.
Uniqueness. I gave it a 4 in uniqueness. I think as the story structure goes, it's pretty standard. But to have a movie somehow put together a story of a Hollywood blacklisted writer along with, you know, the whole amnesia thing in a small town and growing a movie theater and kind of all the things that happens in this movie, I think it's pretty darn unique. I mean, there are certainly a lot of amnesia stories, but like I said, I'm super interested in the blacklists part of things and kind of that golden age of Hollywood and, or, you know, coming out of it especially. So I like it. It's a 4 for me.
Nice. For me, it's a 3. It's definitely got unique elements, and how it puts them together is unique. It's just those elements that aren't. And it's a failing, because this is why we made these categories the way that we did, is because we have to view these objectively.
Right.
We like this movie. We've both said that. We like this movie. But objectively, for me, the uniqueness takes a few points down because, yeah, it's an amnesia story. Yeah, it's Hollywood stuff. Yeah, it's on the tails of World War II. I mean, we've seen a lot of these things before. But it does tie them all together in a unique way, so that's why it gets a 3.
Well, and I think because it's a little bit of an homage, that maybe is why it gets slightly higher marks for me, and I'll talk about that later, is that it's drawing from those classic tropes, so to speak. But I see what you mean, absolutely. So what'd you get for cinematography?
Cinematography's a 4.
All right.
Yeah, it didn't distract at all. I was fully engaged with the movie. It doesn't get a 5 or anything higher because it didn't do anything super groundbreaking. There wasn't like a particular shot that was just completely standout. I will say, though, I love the lighthouse for whatever reason.
It was gorgeous.
I have been to a couple lighthouses, and they need to be shown off more, man. The bulbs that are inside there, the craftsmanship, they need to be, classic lighthouses need to be in movies more.
True.
And that's what I'll say.
Okay.
So cinematography a 4 because it's just bang on the money. That's what we're looking for. But there's nothing beyond.
Okay. Now, I might be a little bit biased in saying I give it a 5. It's, like I said, it's such a warming movie to me. This is probably my favorite style of cinematography, kind of the classic Hollywood look, but rich in color, soft, lighting done very well. I love the hair lights that happen, the backlighting of all the characters to make them pop. And then the fun set pieces. The lighthouse was one of them at the party when they're standing in front of the Majestic with all the lights lit up. There's just some really pretty stuff, and it brings me great comfort. So I was watching it for cinematography this go around, and I was not disappointed. So nice. I gave it a 5. So
what would you give it for story?
For story, that's kind of where I factor in the foibles of it using pretty standard story stuff. So I give it a 3.5. Not particularly. I mean, it's predictable. But it's fine. I mean, like, it develops the characters well. Everyone, kind of gets their closure and their arc. But as it goes, it's I would say a pretty standard story, outside of the couple little outlier moments. But, he has his big speech at the end, and he comes back and he gets the girl and that kind of thing. So well done, but predictable.
Yeah, I'm there with you. 3.5.
Same kind of thing?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Good deal. All right, how about for execution?
4.5.
All right.
Almost perfect.
Okay.
It really was just the acting in the beginning. And it's hard to judge an actor and give critiques from our cinematic point of view from being a videographer, because I'm not an actor. But it's just to say that it was distracting. His acting in the first third was distracting. It did feel like there was a punchline coming. It felt like there was a wacky face coming up. And I don't know how to fix that because he's Jim Carrey.
Right. It's hard to suspend your disbelief with certain casting choices, for sure.
But the rest of it was pretty dang flawless. I enjoyed the acting for the rest of the movie. I liked the set pieces, especially the Majestic's front. It was really good. So yeah, 4.5.
Excellent. I went a little higher. I gave it a 5, and maybe it's because I'd seen it before, so I knew that the ending was going to be impactful. But my mom is not a lover of Jim Carrey. She hates Jim Carrey, generally speaking, because he's just kind of an obnoxious comedian. This is one of the few movies where she actually likes him in it, and for good reason. I mean, he's completely, authentically dramatic, and it comes completely to a head at the end where, yeah, the beginning's a little lackluster, but it makes up for it so much with the final speech and the coming around and back to the town. And I think every character within it has great individuality. They're all unique in that you sure you can't remember all the names of all the people, but you remember how he impacted them because they are distinguished enough that although they're back characters, like he knows them and has impacted them, and they reoccur. And so that could be so poorly executed. They could pepper you with too many characters, and they could oversaturate what's happening in the story. But this movie juggles it all really well, and it juggles it with great heart. It juggles it with great intention. Looks pretty, all that. So I don't know. I think it's perfectly executed for what it is. Absolutely. So
Cool. How immersed were you?
I'm immersed. I know I had mentioned the length. I was still immersed though. I give it a 4.5. Maybe it was just today and the fact that I was a little not totally in, but dude, it's a great movie. So I don't know. The immersion's great. They don't have bloated scenes.
Yeah, same here. We even had to pause the movie because I had to go take care of some stuff and came back. And even with that break that we took, I was immersed.
Yeah.
Again, that first third, I'm kind of giving, well, I'm not giving a pass to. That's why it's not a 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was immersed the whole way through. I was having a good time. So
Yeah.
4.5.
Yay. How emotionally connected were you?
3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, 3.5 out of 5. Definitely felt a lot more than I was expecting, especially that last 2/3. It was really, really emotional, and I could feel like tears welling up, and you can just feel the heartstrings getting pulled. It wasn't anything more than that, though. This is a movie where I'm unfortunately feeling like I'm not going to remember it that well, but still gave me emotions, and that's what I'm looking for out of movies. So
Cool.
3.5.
Heck yeah. Okay. I'll take that up a little. I gave it a 4.5. This movie has a soft spot in my heart for a lot of reasons. I really love movies that take great care into bringing an homage to what movies are. And since movies are our bread and butter, film is our bread and butter. It's the thing that keeps us thriving and the thing that we love to do. It hits home especially hard for me. Really anything that dabbles within the industry with some sort of the rose-colored glasses, or something that brings the optimism out of the industry, and an industry that has since jaded a little bit. To have a movie that really celebrates the intention behind it, and I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie Hugo?
Once a long time ago.
That was another one that was very much like this, where it was a movie I went in expecting something completely different from, but by the time you're done with it, it delves into Georges Méliès, who's like filmic pioneer, him and Edison, and by the end of it, it's just like Scorsese's celebration of film. And it hits me every time because it's just so much about the magic of what movie making is and the magic of being transported when you enter a cinema, and that experience that you can gain from it. And I think that's why this movie, why the emotional connection is there. I don't give it a 5 because there are certain things that throughout the movie, you've got kind of the classic love story as whatever it may be, and it's relatable and all, but for me it hits the most home with the transportation of film to taking you out of the harshness of life. So I enjoy that most. So yeah, 4.5. That's all I will say about that.
Nice. Well, that's our scores. So we're ready for our final total. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The Majestic. We have given you some notes, and your final score out of 5 is 4.126666, repeating. So that is a 4.
4-star.
4 out of 5 stars.
Sweet.
Darn good movie. Very enjoyable from a golden age, as we would call it. Not the golden age, because that's, what is that, the 60s and 70s?
It was right after the war. I think it was Golden Age of Hollywood is considered the 40s, maybe the 30s. Golden Age is, I think, right around talkies.
Okay.
I think. Don't quote me on that. I think. I don't know. Whenever it wants to be.
Yeah. But yeah, it comes from a good age that we treasure a lot. The style's awesome. Really good movie. Give it a watch.
Yeah. Might be hard to find, but it's worth it.
Yeah, we have the DVD. Let us know.
Yes.
This was also our first suggested movie that we have seen. Thank you, Steve. It was a great suggestion. Very much enjoyed it. If you have suggestions, leave them down in the comments. Let us know what you thought of this review. Let us know what you think of The Majestic. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.